Welcome to What Happens When the Cookie Crumbles. Introducing our speakers. Matthew Kilmurry, Chief Executive Officer at Intrinsic Digital. Michelle Alicea, Senior Director of Marketing and Public Relations at Kairoi Residential. Kyra Lambo, Digital Marketing Director at Equity Residential. Xiyao Yang, Senior Marketing Analytics Manager at Bazzuto. And Kitty Callaghan, Vice President of Marketing at Wasatch Property Management.
You gotta bring my cheering squad.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Matthew Kilmurry. I'll be moderating this panel. We've got a lot to go through, so we're going to jump right in. But before we do, legally, we cannot talk to you about any of this until you accept all the cookies. All right, so you have to go and hit that little button at the bottom. You know, and I was thinking before this, like, how did we get here? You know, where we all have the accept the cookies at the bottom of all of our websites, and we have to constantly be updating our privacy policy. And the answer to that really is everyone in this audience who's been searching for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which is multi-touch attribution. It's really driven all of this. We all want to know the journey that our prospects have taken to get to us, right? So whenever Google, Apple, or Meta makes a change to privacy, we have to talk to our legal departments, we have to update all of our websites. And I get 50 phone calls from all of our clients, you know, wanting to know how the change, the newest change, affects the marketing campaigns. So what we're going to be talking about today is not about targeting. Getting in front of prospects through search, social, location isn't going away. What will be affected and has been affected is our ability to report on those conversions of those campaigns. You know, as marketers, we need to understand the ROI of our marketing dollars and have levers to pull in order to improve those campaigns. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's jump right in with the first question. Kitty, when it comes to complex technical topics like cookies, privacy, and tracking, many people may get anxious, may feel like they're a little bit behind somebody else. What would you say to somebody feeling that way?
First off, don't be alarmed. Nobody has this figured out. Not even those outside the industry. We think kind of technology, we aren't really sure about things. Well, nobody's sure about this. The onus is really on our vendors and our digital partners to figure out the third-party cookie piece of it. For us, it's our role is to understand our first-party data and what it means to our privacy policies with our websites and our digital reach.
And how about you, Michelle?
Well, I think, you know, in preparation for this and a lot of our discussions, we all pretty much agreed that there are positives really to these changes, which I think is really important. And, you know, specifically pushing us forward as marketers in how we use data to really, you know, approach our customers and help them along, you know, the way in their consumer journey. And then just even in the end, just determining the advertising effectiveness.
Yep. And in this industry, we probably have more data on our customers than any other industry. So speaking of first-party data, what does that mean for you, Kyra?
Yeah, so by definition, first-party data is data that you own that's been given to you with consent from your consumers by either interactions on apps and websites or marketing initiatives. What that means in real people terms for us is it's prospect information, it's resident information, it's website traffic, social media followers, surveys, all of that kind of falls underneath the umbrella of first-party data. And like Matthew mentioned, we're really lucky. We're in an industry where we have really robust first-party data sets. So if you haven't already, I would honestly start there and make sure from a marketing perspective, you're utilizing the first-party data you already own, to its fullest extent. It's a really good first step as we kind of get towards the death of third-party cookies.
Yep. So the title of this session is When the Cookie Crumbles. So before we continue on, Kitty, how can you define for us what a cookie is?
Okay, all apologies to Cookie Monster. We're not talking chocolate chip or oatmeal here. We're talking about little files of data that's stored on your browser that contains information about you and your online activity. Of course, Cookie Monster's cookies might include chocolate chip and oatmeal, but for the rest of us, it's a variety of other information. First-party data is defined as data your company is collected directly from your audience, your customers, visitors to your website, or followers to your social media. First-party cookie is created and stored by the website that you're visiting directly. So if you go onto a website, the cookie stored there will be a first-party cookie. It allows site owners to collect customer analytics data, remember language settings, carry out other useful functions that help provide a good user experience. And we're all really focused on that good user experience. Those first-party cookies help us get there. Think about when you're logging into Amazon or Facebook. They already know who you are. They already know what you like, and they serve up information based on your past browsing experience. Third-party cookies, on the other hand, are created and placed by parties other than the website you're actually visiting. We recently visited Catalina, and I looked up things to do while we were visiting the island. And now my web search feed is full of ads about hotels in Catalina, even though I never looked for a hotel. Those would be third-party cookies that saw me look up Catalina and said, oh, she must need a hotel. So some common uses include cross-site tracking, the practice of collecting browsing data from numerous sources, websites, and that details your activity. And then retargeting, drip marketing, using search activity to retarget visitors with visual or text ads based on products and services that they've shown an interest in. So it's pretty much what it sounds like. First-party data is data you collect about your customers, and third-party data, someone else is collecting information about people visiting your website.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so there's already been some changes, right? So Google announced that they're going to be phasing out third-party cookies in 2023. It was originally 2022, but they punted it for a year. But there's already been a significant number of changes to privacy and tracking in the last few years that's worth mentioning. Both Firefox and Safari have already phased out third-party cookies. Now, they're not nearly as big as Chrome, but it's already been happening. And of course, the big change last year was in Apple's rollout of the opt-in for their IDFA. So any of you have an iPhone, you've seen it, right? Allow to track across apps. And that allows us as marketers to know that when somebody clicks on our Facebook ad, that they later converted on our website. That's the reason that Facebook took out an article in the New York Times that their stock went down, because they were really considering this is going to be a huge impact on businesses' ability to report conversions, not to target in Facebook, but to report on the conversions of those targeting. And then we'd be spending, as advertisers, we'd be spending less money with Facebook as a result of that, because we can't track how it's performing. Android actually also brought that out last year, but for them, it's an opt-out. So you have to go into your settings and opt out of being tracked across apps. And so obviously a lot less people are doing it within the Android device. So I've been thinking over the last year, right, this change within iOS happened mid-year last year, right? And there's a lot of scrambling, a lot of changes going on. And the big question was, what impact, if any, and we'll start with Xiyao, what impact, if any, have you seen from the changes to iOS tracking?
Yeah, from the iOS side, because I think our rental journey is very complex. So it typically involves a very longer period of time, and it involves multiple devices. So we didn't really see from just iOS side of the changes from our data.
Yeah. And how about you, Kyra?
Yeah, I agree with everything Xiyao had to say. Our journey is less linear than some other industries. And for us, we've got 300 buildings, roughly 200 neighborhoods, all on the same website. So we've got a chunk of website traffic every month, but we haven't seen anything super quantifiable yet.
Yeah, and across the campaigns that we're managing for clients, we have not really seen the conversions within Facebook start to drop, even with those IDFA changes yet. I will say yet on that, because I do expect it to start. But when that is will be a question we'll all find out together. So with this, let's talk about a case study. There's a copy of it on each of your tables, and we'll move over to Michelle. Michelle, can you talk to us about a case study that you did using first-party data within Kairoi, and then matching that data within Facebook advertising?
Sure, and I'll just kind of add to that at Kairoi. We have a much smaller data set comparatively, but we're at 46 communities across 2 states. But essentially, we were seeing the same results. So for us, what we've been focused on lately is really testing and getting prepared. And in this case study, we focused more on evaluating whether we have the right technology platform in place to be able to adapt to these requirements of the tech, and really determining what's the best process, right? And beginning to utilize the tools, and in this case, Meta with their matchback tool. So hopefully walking through this, it kind of gives you a framework for your own testing. And of course, there's other approaches to this, and we'll get into some of those later, but we work with Apartment Geofencing to serve our social media ads across Facebook and Instagram. And essentially, a prospect clicks on the ad and they're directed to the property website. And, this is where that potential gap exists as to what happens next. And so, as we continue in that journey, the prospect takes an action on our website. Let's say they schedule a tour. And of course, the first party data, the email, is captured in our CRM, and we partner with Anyone Home. Of course, there's many CRMs serving our industry. And then once per day, we're batching and transmitting all the confirmed tours, including the name, email, and phone, from our CRM to Apartment Geofencing. And the data's formatted, and then it's uploaded into Facebook Events Manager. And to clarify for us, tours were actually in-person tours, or somebody that actually did a virtual tour with one of our associates. And then really, as we proceed through that, the matchback process begins, and Facebook will look at any matches between our first-party data and then any profiles that were really served our ads. And as those, any matches that are counted, they're offline conversions, and they're reported in our dashboard. The information, it's anonymized, so there's no personal identifying information that's really shared with us. Really only whether there's a match. So, with that information, Facebook can then begin to optimize our ads. And I would say, in kind of working through this, there were a few areas that really required some prep, right? And some hurdles that required some development. Fortunately, there was really nothing major. But our first really was from a legal perspective. Did we have all the proper consumer-facing, privacy policies and terms in place with the disclosures of what we were doing? And I think we're majority fee managed at this point, and with some owned. So this required us to get buy-in from some of our clients, and to really use the data. And in doing so, we had to develop some, supplemental educational pieces as to the why and the how, because, they don't live in it as we do. So that was, another way that we kind of helped get prepared. And from a CRM aspect, we had to extract that data, right? And in that specific way so that it could be, structured for that upload process. And fortunately, we're able to do ad hoc reports with our CRM. And so, really it was just a matter of ensuring that it's scheduled daily. And we didn't really need to wait on any sort of additional development from our partner because most of those functions were actually already built in to be self-serve, which we were fortunate to have. And really, once that data was delivered to Apartment Geofencing, there was some additional work on your part for that to automate and really, upload and create that API integration with Facebook Events Manager. And this was essentially everything that we did to get prepared. And once we had all those pieces kind of in place, we were up and running. In the first 2 weeks, we saw a 19%, decrease in cost and conversion. And then after about 2 months, it was a 26% decrease in cost and conversion. And so really, while all these, metrics were positive, there were some, lessons learned along the way. Really, you can't miss a day of uploading that data. And so the consistency and that automation, piece is really key for the optimization. And so it's not just a Monday through Friday task. And, really also just the importance of a clean transfer of data, right? For that, consistency and the ease of use. And I'd say ultimately, like, we were successful, really, in building out this connection with our partners, which was really our main focus here. And so, our next step will be we'll look to roll this out on a much larger scale and continue to optimize all of our ads. And for me, I think, the biggest takeaway really was, in addition to just finding out which of our partners are actually already preparing solutions, like Matthew, was really a need for our tech to branch out of, our industry and really communicate with tech outside of our industry. So, really just in addition to determining, the advertising effectiveness, I think, we really want to meet and serve our consumer really on their preferred platforms.
Yep. Thank you, Michelle, for that in-depth look. And, as cookies do start to get phased out and the conversion reporting gets less and less using third-party cookies within Facebook, these types of things are going to become more and more important for us to really understand, did that person who saw the ad eventually convert, on our website or in person? So Xiyao, you've begun testing Facebook Conversion API. Talk to us a little bit about how that technology works.
Sure. So I think, follow with me. So this image on the screen will help us to get a little bit into it. So conventionally, when we're talking about Facebook event tracking, we typically place a Facebook pixel on our web. So, but those are not really on the server side. We typically call it on the browser side. So on the browser side, there are some issues with, the ad blockers or sometimes the connectivities, and then those conversions would not track 100%. So with this issues that we are seeing, so Facebook definitely introduced the Conversions API. So Facebook Conversions API is literally their solution for this cookieless tracking. So as you can see on the screen here, is the Facebook Conversion API will be placed directly on the server. So that's a server to Facebook servers connection. So what that means is the data will directly flow from our website server directly to Facebook. So the whole connectivity will be much more reliable than before, which is on the browser side of the tracking. So what's the benefit? I think Michelle touched quite a lot of them. So first is we'll be able to really see the reduce of the cost, because imagine before with all the connectivity issues with the browser crashing or sometimes even the ad blockers that we all heard of. So those conversions don't get tracked. But now from server to server, those things will directly send it to Facebook. And then the ad will be much more personalized than before. And then the best of all of the things, we got all the controls for the data, what sends to Facebook, what not to send to Facebook. So ultimately, this is really gonna help us to really solve the issue with more personalized and then without any cookie. So I think here, really wanna kind of remind you guys, when we move away from this cookieless tracking, we will hear a lot on something called server-side tracking. So Google Analytics are doing it, and then Facebook, also Meta, are doing it. But overall, I think what we really need to remind ourselves with all the big companies, they already built a very, very strong infrastructure in terms of using the first-party data. Because imagine if you want to get onto Facebook or Amazon or YouTube, the first thing you do is you need to log in. So that is how we share our first-party data to all of those platforms. And then they use those first-party data to run more precise targeting.
Thank you, Xiyao. So we've heard about how to track Meta, both offline conversions and online conversions, kind of switching, using first-party data and then using their conversion API tool. So beyond paid social, Kyra, what about Google? What can marketers do to prepare for when third-party cookies are phased out?
Yeah, and Xiyao actually set me up perfectly for that. But Google basically has no other option other than to find a solution or solutions that protect the privacy of its users and continue to maintain an advertising platform that's measurable and effective for its partners. They have an entire task force dedicated to coming up with these solutions, and they've got a website which you can go to, their Privacy Sandbox website. Basically walks through some of the pilots and brainstorming that they're doing on these potential solutions. one of the ideas right now on the website is the idea of topics. That's what they call it, topics. It allows advertisers to continue doing interest-based marketing, so like that upper funnel marketing, without having access to specific websites that users are going to. So that's in pilot phase. We'll figure out if that's successful or not. But one initiative which has graduated, so to speak, from the privacy sandbox and is live now is enhanced conversions. And excuse me, enhanced conversions is basically Google's solution to the same thing that you were talking there with Facebook. It's conversion tracking without cookies. So the implementation is basically you put either a G tag or another tag through Google Tag Manager on your site. And then how the solution works is when a user's logged into Google, sees an ad on any of the Google platforms, YouTube or Google Native, and then later converts on your website, hashed or anonymized data is kicked back over to Google via that tag that was put into place to be able to track that conversion effectively. So that's something that is live. Like I said, anyone can implement it now, but it is new. I mean, it came out of beta like in March 2020. So everyone's still really learning from it, but it is something you can kind of take and research and figure out if it makes sense to implement.
Yeah, thank you. And it's interesting that, you know, Google's kind of fighting itself with this in that they are phasing out third-party cookies,
Right.
but they are an advertising platform.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
That's where they make the majority of their money.
Hence the delays.
Hence
you
the
know?
delays. Hence the delays. So beyond Google and Meta, there are other platforms making a name for themselves. One of them is LiveRamp. So LiveRamp is, they've put together what they call their data store. So it's a way for us as marketers to utilize our first-party data without having to directly share it with the platform. So right now, within Kairoi, as you heard, we're sending first-party data to Meta, right? And that's the matchback is happening there. With LiveRamp, it's all in one centralized location called their data store. So, you know, I send my first-party, my customer data into the data store, and it gets what's called hashed. We heard Kyra say that. And hash just basically means that it's anonymized, okay? So that it creates like a framework that can be understood within the data store, within LiveRamp, but nowhere else. So if that data was pulled out and there was a breach, you wouldn't understand any of that personal identifiable information because it's all been hashed. But then you can start to pull in data from Facebook, from, you know, now Meta and Google and all the other platforms that you use, even niche data with email and other things into the data store, and then pull out conversion data. Because that's what we're trying to get at here, right? Is our marketing platforms that we're using, are they working? And so LiveRamp right now is really it's massively expensive, and it's really only being used by some of the major players like Procter & Gamble and McDonald's and other stuff like that. But it's, you know, they were kind of first to market, but there's going to be changes with that. They're putting together a mid-market solution for companies probably our size. And then beyond LiveRamp, what we use is TapAd cross-device graph. And this is what we're implementing in order to kind of move forward without cookie tracking. So within TapAd, what we're able to do is cross-device match. So we use geofencing technology, and we're able to, you know, geofence a particular building. And then within that, if you think of all the devices that are attached to a particular Wi-Fi, as soon as, you know, you connect in your home, you can think about it in your own house, your own apartment community. All of your devices are on the same Wi-Fi, which means you have a shared IP address. And then within that shared IP address, we're able to group all of the devices together and create a profile of that person. Okay, this phone, this laptop, this TV, right? Because now all of our TVs are attached to our Wi-Fi, are all the same user. And so now we can start to show ads across devices without there being any cookies, because it's all based on a shared IP address. And so with that, when somebody goes to the website for one of our clients' apartment communities, we can then do the cross-device graph and say, oh, okay, this is their TV. And we can show them a 15-second commercial on Hulu now. We're rolling out you know, audio ads on Spotify. And so, you know, all of this multimedia becomes available to us through cross-device matching, display on mobile devices. And then even if that same mobile device comes to the conversion zone, the apartment community to tour, we can tag that as a walk-in. So These are all things that are being done so that when cookies get phased out, we can use device ID and cross-device matching to still be able to show ads across devices and then report on those for conversions. And then another thing that is really kind of forefront of this is a customer data platform, which, Xiyao, why don't you talk to us about what this is?
Yeah, so customer data platform, I think today the second time we heard about this term. And then basically it's like we talked about CRM 20 years ago. So it's basically a software that sits on be able to collect all the data source from all the touch point that our renters that might have engaged with. And then it creates a centralized customer database. And then we'll be able to map all of this data and then slice and dice it and then push it out to other systems. So as you see on the screen, it's like you have all the data sources that you'll be able to really integrate with. And then we have unified system in the middle. And then we push this data out to the system that we need to. So give you a more practical example. For example, we want to run a campaign about people who are interested in the 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. So what we can do is pretty much we connect all the data points from Facebook, from Google Ads, from our websites, and then emails. All of those are the tools that our renters engage with. And then those data all pulling in. The system CDP will be able to sort of match all of those data and then identify all the users who are interested in a 2-bedroom, 2 bathroom who visited a website, but they haven't toured yet, they haven't made a decision yet. And then those data are also hashed, so we will not know their PII. And then once those data is ready, you'll be able to push out, for example, to an email campaign. And then we only target people who are interested in 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. So the reason that we're doing this, and I want to big shout out to my boss, Daniel, who is also in the stadium, that we're really looking at this whole system. And then is to really create our first party data system because the third party cookie is really sunsetting. And then so we have more control of the data. So I think the picture that you see is very similar to the 2 images that Matthew showed before. Is we collect all the data from one system, multiple system, and then centralize it and push out to literally, we can say, the endless systems that we can use those data.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is the direction it's heading, where we can have kind of our own sandbox, our own safe place where we have our first-party data to go into versus sharing that data with every platform that we use, right? Like sending our tour data to Google, to Meta, to our email providers, to our ILSs, right? And then matching that data back. Definitely the direction it's going is to the customer data platforms. All right, so, but marketing can't function on an island as much as I would love to be able to pull the trigger on a lot of these things ourselves. When it comes to user data, the big question is we have to ask ourselves is what other departments do we need to get involved? And has marketing spoken to legal and ops and clients and kind of all of that. So let's start with you, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a collaboration between marketing and legal, especially when you're fee managed, right? So, it really starts at the PMA. I think that, sometimes there's current language in there that probably addresses the past concerns over the use of emails. So, really kind of digging into that and just going back and evaluating that language. We don't take this lightly. We want to be transparent, and we're very much aware of the risk and just the perception, here really. And we also want to be thoughtful and really strategic, about how we spend our ad dollars on behalf of the client. So that's really, our ultimate goal there.
Right, there's a lot of people to talk to.
Yes.
How about you, Kyra? Because you have an interesting perspective coming from a publicly traded company.
Yes, we're a large public company, so I involved my legal department in more marketing decisions than they probably thought they'd ever be involved in, and certainly more than I ever thought I would involve legal in from a strategic standpoint. Anytime we have a new targeting strategy or anything that we're kind of brainstorming, legal is one of my first steps, just to kind of like make sure that we check all the boxes and make sure everything's okay. On a regular basis, we're going through our privacy policy and our cookies, especially as they relate to CCPA, and making sure that we're in compliance.
Yep. So we want to make sure that we have some takeaways before we open it up for questions to the audience. So we want to do 5 key takeaways from this session, and we'll start with you, Kitty.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from our conversations getting ready for this was don't get overwhelmed. Know what data you have available to you today. Understand your first-party data. Make sure you're using it efficiently and effectively before you go out there and try to find more. Because as Matthew said early on, we already own more data about our customers and our potential customers than most industries out there. So use what you got first before you go out and try to get more.
Yep. And how about you, Michelle?
Well, if you've ever done DISC, I'm like a DC, so like the C is like you're really cautious. So I would say, think about, make sure you have consent to use the data.
Consent, yep. And Xiyao.
Yep. So I think the biggest is like, don't be panic. And then the big tech companies are working on it. So we need to implement it once those solutions are ready.
Yep. Thank you. And finally, Kyra.
Yeah, I'd say don't wait. We've talked through some solutions today that might be a little bit overwhelming, but if you take them one at a time and kind of start preparing, like some of the changes went into place last year, some will go in this year, some will go in next year. So if you just kind of take it one piece at a time, then by the time Google rolls out their stuff, you'll be in a better position.
Thank you. And I'd say, finally for mine, about opportunity, this is more for the service providers. I see a lot of tech forward people here in the industry, Ellen and others. And, this is an opportunity for us as service providers. There is a need in the marketplace to be able to create a customer data platform in this industry, right? But it's going to take a lot of collaboration. So that means that, the advertising agencies that work within Meta, within Google, the ILSs, the email providers, all of that, we need to be willing to share data, create APIs into a central box where we can hash the data, anonymize it, and then provide an output for clients. And I know that's a heavy lift, but I'm willing to get started. And really, I think it would be something that would be amazing for this industry. And whoever cracks that is going to be like really, it's going to be great. So with that, we have plenty of time, about 10 minutes for some questions from the audience. I see one way back there. I know everyone wants to start drinking, but
hold on. Thank you, Tony. I have a question. As Google's about to sunset UA and we're all about to adopt G4, what metrics are we going to have to start being concerned with, and how does this, what you spoke about today, impact G4? Are there any takeaways on that?
Thank you. So what I heard from that is, as we transition to G4, what are the metrics we may lose? What are the things that we need to be really focused on? Anybody here want to take a crack at that, Kyra? Yeah.
Sure, I will take it. Yes, J4 is still in beta. It's very exciting, but of course, I think there's a lot of things that we need to be cautious about because, so J4 give a lot of customizations in terms of events. So I think implementing J4, needs some really deep evaluation of what kind of events that you would like to track. And then what things that we will lose. So imagine if we're familiar with Google's setup, is we have accounts, we have property, we have views. So the views will be gone completely. So everything that we set up in the view, in GA4, it will be no longer there. Your scheduled emails won't be there. And then like a lot of the goals and things that you're supposed to, before you set up, right now it's gonna be super easy because immediately when you set up those events, you can simply just turn those events into conversions. So I would say it takes some time. It takes some of the, I would say, analytic backend to really kind of go through, but it's much more powerful than Google Analytics 3, which is the UA. So again, don't be panic. And then Google actually provide really good setup standards for you to say, hey, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if you kind of like follow them, you're pretty much 80% there. So if you have some analytics team members who are more involved with the events tracking, conversion tracking, especially they work very closely with your agencies who are running their paid search, definitely work with them to set up some of the more meaningful conversions, because now those are something that Google really trying to push.
Yeah, I would also say too, work with your agencies and embrace platform data more.
Yeah.
GA is great, it's a free tool, we love it, but that's after they've clicked on something, they've come to your website, right? So what is the platform data that your agencies that you work with, what do they have access to? Pull that into a BI tool and so you can kind of see holistically, all the ways in which your brand is being engaged with across the different advertising platforms. Who else has a question? I can kind of
put them to sleep or scared them to death.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
It's also the last session of the day. I know how that goes. I have a question for the audience. Do you think this is worth it? All of this extra work that we're about to move into, is it worth it for you in order to know, did this ad convert better than this ad, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here. Or is it enough to be like, you know what? I know these platforms work, we're going to invest, and we're going to put this % of our budget here and here.
I'm ready to run to you. Not sure how much feedback you might get on that, but any closing remarks you think you want to end with today?
No, I think our key takeaways are there. I really appreciate all of your time today. And, this is a topic that's we're probably going to be talking about again next year, but we'll probably have some more implementation case studies along the way. So thank you all so much.
Awesome. Give them a round of applause. Thanks, guys. Great job. Hey, everybody. So we ended a little early, I think. A great day one here at AIM. So thanks for coming out. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll be back tomorrow as well. Be sure, if you haven't, download the app, the AIM app. I'm sure most of you have, but tonight we want to see all those pictures of you guys going out having a good time. So thanks for a great day one, guys. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you out there, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.